Hey guys, how's it going? So, things are going not too bad. We're actually finally starting to get some ice out here. Still very, very touch and go in spots. We got the green beast here. She's running great. Was out ripping around this morning on it. Things are, everything seems in check with that, so we're all happy there. Today we're going to try and tackle a problem sled. I'm going to call it a problem sled. It's normally a pretty good sled. It's I think it's a 1980 Arctic El Tigre. It's a forced air or free air, cooled machine, no fan, no liquid. It's 500cc. The thing ran fun. It was a great machine to beat around on, but I started to have issues with it. Every time it would sit down or sit still for a period of time, it seemed like the engine was filling full of fuel. Typically, we would say that's a float problem. We did clean all the carbs before all that. We thought maybe we fixed it, but again, got it up here, went around for a rip around the lake, and it stopped on us pretty quick. So, well, it didn't stop, it just flooded again on us. So, we're thinking, we've already replaced the fuel lines, we've already replaced the fuel pump itself. First we did diaphragms, that didn't seem to fix the issue. Then we did a full new fuel pump, so I'm not worried about the fuel pump in there. It runs fine when it's running, so it's not like a fuel pump issue, but this is her. She's a beast. It's in really, really good shape, but we're just having issues with it. So we're going to pop the carbs off, I think. There's not too many videos about... Look at this. Very simple machine. Not much in here at all. So we're going to try and figure out what the carbs are, or what the carb issue is. We'll pop both those off, and we'll show you what the inside of them look like. We'll see if there's a problem with one of the floats. I want to say it's the PTO side, this carburetor, that is causing our issue. But it's really hard to say. We'll rip them apart and we'll get inside them and see what's going on with them. We'll clean them up. Hopefully it's all good to go. Maybe we can get this thing running this year. That'd be fun. Alrighty, stay tuned. Okay, we're hoping the camera's not too bad here. The nice thing about these older snowmobiles is there's really not much to them to really pop these things apart. These are just held on by zip ties, just small little rubber boots that connect the carburetor to the air box, this being the air box. We loosened off the 1 Phillips screw, which is right here. It's just a clamp, and with that being loose, these should be able to twist off fairly easy. We might run into an issue here with this fuel line because I don't have cutters here, but we'll pop this off. We actually might need a wrench here to pop the choke out. Yeah, that's pretty tight. So we'll leave this in for right this second. You can see this slot here lines up. There's a pin right there, so that'll slide in. Those should fall and slide in freely whenever you're reinstalling them. So try it. Yeah, that's good. See, those don't need to be, they want to be tight, but you don't need to have those clamped down to a torque spec. Those aren't nuts, right? That's just for your hand to tighten them up nice. So you don't need to have those at like 50 foot-pounds to be able to keep them on there. But you want to make sure they free fall and they slide easily, because that's your carburetors, right? Alright, so we'll grab some extra tools here and we'll try and get this fuel line to pop off, and we'll these fuel lines are super hard too, so those are going to want to be replaced anyways. Like I said, this machine's been sitting for I guess a year now. Those went hard pretty quick, but that's what happens when you buy cheap fuel line. Okay, so we'll get back out of here. Whoa, take her easy. Okay, boys, we got the choke cables here loose. We got the fuel lines knocked off and removed and pulled back. So now we'll just twist out these choke cables. So what's nice about these machines is look how much room there is in here. So much room to work on them. Oh, did we loosen this one? Oh yeah, there we go. So this is a really fun old sled, but like these old machines, sometimes they can be temperamental like this, and you have issues with them. So, you know what? We might have an issue. Look at all this dust that's falling off here. It's just the choke plunger. And for sure, if that's dusty inside that carburetor plunger like that, these carburetors are going to be... Yeah, this one looks a little gummed up too, a little corroded. So they will be gummed up. So, with these throttle tube slides, you want to be careful you don't scratch, damage, wreck them. You can see the needle here is in fairly good shape. It's pretty clean. We don't need to worry too much about that. I'm slowly just going to lift these out. They're pretty easy to see the different lengths, which one is going to go to which carburetor. It's pretty hard to mix those up. Okay, so now we have this worm clamp loose. We have our air boot disconnected. We have our fuel line off. We have our choke cable disconnected. There's nothing else on this carburetor that's floating. Slight little jiggle, and you should be able to slide the carburetor right out like that. Be conscious that there could be fuel still in the carburetor. It almost feels like there might be a little bit. It could just be clogged solid though too. So we will from here take these inside and we're going to clean them up. They really don't look that bad from the outside. I did clean these like 2-3 years ago maybe, but you get fuel. Our fuel nowadays sucks, to be honest. It's crap fuel. So it gums up in 20-30 minutes if the machine's not running, it seems like. The one thing though you do want to pay attention is you don't want to mix these carburetors up. You want to install them on the same side that they were removed from. So before I do remove that one, I'm going to slip this one back in here quickly. And I have a little marker that I can just mark one side, and I'll mark on the head. This way I know that it'll be going back in the same orientation. You don't want to mix your carburetors up. You want them to keep them. You want to keep them on the same cylinders. So be sure to do that, and from there we'll get inside and throw some air through these things, take them apart, and clean them up. See what we got inside. Okay, guys, we're inside here. Bear with me off this lighting here. We're going to try and make this work best we can. So first things first, I want to back off all these float bowl screws. It does not seem like there's any fuel in here. I didn't think there would be. It's been sitting for a year, and I'm pretty sure we drained it last time we put her away anyways. So, these Phillips screws. Oh, you know what? No, there might be some fuel in here. It's just really, really old. So, we got these Phillips screws here. They're always a pain. Not sure whoever invented the Phillips screw to be a float bowl fastener, but not sure. It's crazy. They're really not that hard to, you don't need to have them crazy tight. If you take care of them and just tighten them properly. People tend to over tighten them and then they strip them and then they're a pain to get out. So that's never fun. Alrighty, crack the float bowl open. Maybe. So when this does happen like this, you have to be very careful. If you hit this hard, this is just cast. It can break pretty easy. So I have a rubber screwdriver handle. Just a few taps. There, you heard it. Heard the noise change a little bit. Just pops right off now, no problem. So don't need to be crazy with it. Don't need to do nothing nuts. So this has an internal float bowl setup where the floats, they seem to move pretty easily. They don't feel full of fluid. I believe the floats are working properly. Everything's really gummy in here though. Everything feels really sticky. So we'll take this gasket and put this aside. It's actually very clean inside the float bowl, so we're okay that way. We will, the fuel that's in here was definitely not very good. The floats, so when you're looking at your float level here, this arm is going to be a determining function or a factor of when the floats actually come up. So your carburetor sits like so. You can see inside there's a small needle. When these become level, the fuel level shuts off, and then you have that certain amount of fuel on demand for your fuel to work properly. When the float levels drop, it opens the needle for fuel to come back in. We think we're having an issue with it not shutting, and just free-flowing, filling fuel down into the carburetor, or down into the engine. So we are going to pop the pin out, which is very easy to do. Sometimes these only come out one way, sometimes they'll come out both ways. This one has a shouldered side, so it does appear to only come out one way. We have the pin. We have the float fork. I'm going to call that a float fork. Then we have our needle. Inside the needle is a small plunger. Plunger seems to be freed up and moving well. On the point, the cone side of this float, you'll want to look for little wears and rings. I don't see any in there. It looks fairly clean. Everything actually looks fairly clean inside of this carburetor. So we're going to go with the float pull adjustment just to make sure those are working properly. We're going to clean out the rest of these, the pilot and the main here. And then from there, we'll see if we can crack this pilot out. So these jets in here don't need to be crazy tight. They need to be snug, and then you bottom out and you just snug them. So this one's out now. We'll see. You guys will not be able to see this, but when we hold this up to the light, it's actually almost clean. It's actually not too bad. It is plugged up a little bit, so we will for sure be blowing this out. We're going to soak them in a solution of carburetor cleaner for a few minutes. Try and wire brush the outside of them just to scuff up the little bit of corrosion that's built up on the outside from the old fuel. And then we will be sure to blow out the jet through the entire... Yeah, because that's pretty clogged up on the inside. So, once these are all cleaned up, we'll get the air compressor here fired up and we'll blow these out. Pop this other jet out. And from there, we will focus on the air-fuel mixture and the idle screw. We will count the screws in that. We will take those and remove those out. And blow out every passage that we can. And then from there, we will reassemble again. So, yeah, let's get the air compressor fired up and see how things go. Okay, guys, so I've just removed the first screw here. It is 1.5 turns until bottoming in. Again, when you are tightening these in and you're counting the turns going into the carburetor to see what the adjustment was outwards, when they start to, when you bottom, that's it. You don't crank it in further. You don't make it tight. You just snugly touch the bottom, back it off just a hair, and then you know from there you would start to count your turns. So from seated, just seated, not tight, just seated, it would be 1.5 turns out. This was at 1.5 turns out. So from there, we have this sitting here. There's a small spring to keep the adjustment because this is such a these old rattle machines here. So we have a small spring inside there just to keep the tension on the adjustment of the jet. We will now just apply a small little bit of fuel, or air, sorry, fuel, to so we can easily, clearly hear there's no restrictions in that port. Even this one, we'll just blow straight through. This will come out the center. Nice and clean. Again, nice and clean. Even the back of the float. So that's just the fuel line. Shouldn't have any issues with that. So just dry off the inside of the carburetor. Notice I'm not using crazy high PSI. You don't need it. You want to be obviously careful of what you're spraying and being in a well ventilated area. So we are going to now remove this small jet down in the center. Doesn't have to be tight at all. See that? Quick and easy to pop off. This one you guys might even be able to see through. I doubt it. So we'll just blow this jet out. I'm gonna make sure you hold these on tight. Nice and clean. Again, we'll just pop that off. There's a small little washer sitting here. No problem. Everything looks fairly clean there, so we'll just quickly reinstall that. Small little brass washer sits on top. Okay, that's tight. Everything's flat and on there. We will reinstall the gasket. Our needles are all in. Our floats are in. These seem to be sliding and operating correctly. Everything fits on top nice and snug. See, look, you also know it's all going together good when everything just fits in nice. You should never have to force this together. If you're forcing something, something's not lined up correctly, and you need to take it back apart, take your time with it. Now again, with these screws, these are just Phillips screws. They don't need crazy torques on them. There's no pressure inside this carburetor. It's not being fed by an electronic fuel pump or running any type of PSI. There might be a small vacuum for it to be able to create pressure coming from the engine, but all you're doing is just keeping the fuel inside. So I like to work all of these down slowly until they're all about snug. Again, don't need nothing crazy. As you can see, these should just thread right in, finger tight, no problem. Don't need to I can't stress it enough. I know I'm repeating myself here, but you really just don't need to be crazy with these. Just make sure they're bottomed, and then just snug them just a bit. You don't need to go crazy. It's just a Phillips head, nothing nuts, and you want to be able to get these off again. Like I said, like I did this 2 years ago. There we go, good to go. This carburetor is ready to be back installed. So we're good to go. I'm gonna have a quick sip of beverage here. Clean this rag up, ensure there's no leftover parts, and then start on carburetor number 2. We'll get right at it. Okay guys, carburetor number 2. Same thing again, right? Crack these float bowls off. You can, if you want to, use this first, but you can pretty much tell right now when you tip these over and the sled hasn't been running for a few years, there's no fuel left in this thing. So we're good to go. So again, Phillips in, slowly crack, 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 just like Ashley Larry. Alright, so that seems to be better. I like that a little bit cleaner. It's more leveled off. I like it. Again, we're back into the putting back together stage. That's tight, that's back installed, that's clean. Floats move easy. You can see these easily move. So again, we'll just give this gasket a little wipe here. It's good to use a non-fiber cloth because you don't want little pieces of hair and stuff stuck inside. This is just getting some of the debris off. Case. Again, should slide on easily. Sits in. Snug. Good to go. Screws again. And we're done. From this point, we can go and reinstall our carburetors again. So we'll get back outside after I snug this up here. We'll get back inside or outside. We'll try to reinstall these carbs quick. As you've seen, they won't take much. And we'll, dare I say, fire this thing up. What do you think? That'd be kind of cool. All right, guys. Well, I'll button this back up. We'll get back outside here, and we'll touch base then. Here. Okay, guys, we're back. So, I did mark these. It's funny. I actually marked the left carburetor this time, but you can see there's an R and an R, obviously for the right-hand side carburetor. So, we will slip this back into the boot, like so. We'll also do the second one right away now too. So again, just to double check, I did carve an L and an L, just to be sure. Click, boom. Number two. Now, it's always good to give the throttle a couple cracks. There's no fuel lines hooked up past the carburetor right now. You just want to make sure those throttles aren't going to get hung up and stuck. So you want to make sure the cables aren't messed around. The choke, same with that, with the plunger. Give them a few shots. Make sure that your throttle cables are moving freely. You don't want anything getting stuck and hung up on you, especially for the first couple fire-ups. You don't want it taken off across the lake on you. So, now that we've got those things all hooked up again, we want to be sure these carburetors are sitting as level and straight up and down as possible with everything that's attached to them now. And we will retighten up these clamps. Same thing again, these clamps don't take much pressure. You just want to make sure they're tight, snug, and that they're not going to fall off and allow any air leaks. So that's in there, good and tight. Number two, same thing. Want to make sure they're straight up and down, that they're level. This way the floats have a perfect chance to work properly. If the carburetor's banked sideways or it's on a crazy angle, it might not get fuel properly. The floats might not operate properly. So that could be sometimes your issue right there if the carburetors aren't even sitting or installed correctly. Just want to make sure everything's all good to go, snug. So that's tight. This is tight. Now, this is easy because these are awesome. These you can almost bend in half actually. Slip them onto the air boot. And look at that. That's super easy to install. Some of these these new sleds are just insane. Try and get the airbox and the boots off. Although, if you go new enough, you're all probably, I think they're all fuel injected now. I'm not sure though. Anyways, this is snugged. That's on there. Want to make sure your boots are all good. They're all tight. Good to go. Alright guys. So at this point, try and get this. Alright. So, at this point now, we've got the carbs back installed. I'm going to take this steel fitment here and replace, it's really hard to see, hopefully the light's not bad. As you can see, we have an issue here. This isn't going to work. So, ooh, that's really tight too. So we're going to need some new fuel line with that. And we're going to see if we can install this. Install this down into there. So I'll button this up and see what happens.
Holy! So that took way longer than I needed. As you can see, pretty close to the exact same length.
We got a little filter on the new one here. So we're going to steel screen on the bottom. Nice fuel line. Thread this through. This installs fairly easy here. Yeah, we'll have to see. There's not a whole lot of fuel in there. I think we're going to wait for a separate day to actually fire this thing up, because I don't want to rush and put all that bad gas all through there. So I'll probably wait, maybe tomorrow. Run into town, grab some fuel quick. It says pre-mix, so I gotta grab some oil as well too. Well guys, let's hope we get to fire it up. But at least you got to see how the carburetor's got cleaned. There's really not much to it when you're actually looking how to clean these things. You just gotta remember, take your time, keep all your parts organized. Oh, there we go. And from there, you can, it's easy. You just gotta make sure they're clean, make sure they're, all the passages are all clear. Your throttle cables are moving freely, your choke cable is moving freely. And, yeah. Hopefully we can get some fuel. Hopefully this thing will fire right back up. It's beautiful out here right now. It's about -6, maybe -7 degrees. Just look at this. Just awesome out here right now. I know that sun's probably crazy bright, but we'll talk this way here. So, hopefully you guys enjoyed that. It's a 1980 El Tigre is what this carburetor or snowmobile was. If you guys have any questions, hit me up in the chat. Hit me up in the comments there, let me know. Again, pretty basic guys. Just cleaning some carbs, going over things. Everything looked pretty clear in there. We'll get some new fuel in there, and hopefully the next video will be us flying across the lake here on that bad boy. We'll see. You guys have been great. Stay tuned for the new video.